The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which was a Humphrey Bogart classic from 1948. I think it was a great film. It's another film with John Huston as the director. And what I like about this is it reminded me a lot of The African Queen. And if you remember in that, I did a review of that one. You know, all three of my fans out there probably remember the African Queen. Basically, Humphrey Bogart, I commented on how he looks so absolutely filthy and grizzled and emaciated and like he smells of smoke and body odor. Well, Treasure of Sierra Madre kind of brings it up a notch because we have Humphrey Bogart and some fellow guys with him out in the mountains, and boy, they must have really smelled pretty bad because they're out looking for gold and they look like they haven't bathed in like a year. And Humphrey Bogart, he just looks at his absolute most grisly. And in fact, there's a sequence towards the end of the film, I'm not going to give anything away, but he's kind of leading along some mules and he's really struggling, and his face is just like caked with filth. And he's got a beard growing and everything, and his hair is all nasty. And oh my goodness. John Huston, I guess, just had a thing for just putting poor Humphrey Bogart through the ringer in terms of just, I'm sure it was probably makeup, but he still looks like he's been having a really hard life. But anyhow, to kind of get to the plot about what's going on with Humphrey in this film. So he is kind of down on his luck. He's in Mexico. He encounters some money, and he and his buddy Tim Holt. I'm not familiar with the actor. I'll probably see him in some other things as I keep going through old films of the past. He kind of looked like a kind of a stocky Shia LaBeouf. Did I say his name right? I don't know. Well, he goes along. He and Humphrey Bogart, they go off to the mountains to look for gold. And along the way, they also go with a kindly old prospector. And, you know, I got to admit, the prospector was amazing. It was Walter Huston who plays this. And it wasn't like the old prospector like you see in the old, you know, Disney-style westerns, you know, like, oh, peaches, you know, not that type. He was instead this prospector who was just filled with vim and vigor, and he had all this energy, and he goes climbing up the mountains, and he's not even breaking a sweat. You know, he's this old guy, but he's like able to dart up a mountain better than Humphrey Bogart and his buddy can. So he is a mountain man who's been looking for gold. He kind of helps Humphrey Bogart and his friend Tim with, you know, all the do's and don'ts of looking for gold in the mountain. You know, sets them straight with fool's gold because, you know, everybody's got to make that mistake at least once. And they all go off. They're up in the mountains, and it looks hot and miserable, and they're all dusty, and they got beards growing and stuff. They have an encounter with some banditos, and they have to fire and kill a whole bunch of them. At one point, there's another guy who shows up. He's another American. He wants to join their group. And Humphrey Bogart, he's not having any of that. So he and the other guys talk about it. They're going to kill him, but then there's the battle with the banditos, and this guy ends up getting killed. So it's kind of a strange little subplot going on with that particular character. It's like as I watch the film, it's like kind of analyzing it, I'm thinking, what purpose did he really play for the story? So maybe some thoughts on that towards the end. Maybe I have an idea, but so this guy wanted to join their crew. He's killed, so we're back to the original three. So Tim Holt is there as Bogart's friend initially. The two of them seem to really be hitting it off as buddies. But then there's a scene where Humphrey Bogart's in a mine, he's digging, and then it kind of caves in on his head. And can't really tell at that point on if Humphrey Bogart's character changes because he's starting to become greedy for gold, or did he take a shot to the head and is he starting to get crazy and paranoid? Because from that point on, Humphrey Bogart just gets more and more grisly and crazy and paranoid of what the other guys are doing. And it's just kind of a downhill trip from there for poor Humphrey. So basically, the old prospector goes off to help an Indian kid. By the way, it should probably be noted the film does play with some stereotypes, and it's probably not the most kind depiction of like the Mexican people and Indians and so on. It's an old film. I mean, this was 1948, so I mean that was kind of common, I guess, in these type of films. So just be aware of that. You know, as you're going through these films, it's probably not the most respectful depiction. Anyhow, so the old prospector guy, he goes off and he's going to help this sick Indian child. So he's kind of out of the group for a while, and that leaves paranoid, rapidly going crazy Humphrey Bogart with his friend Tim, and the two of them start squabbling. Humphrey Bogart ends up shooting Tim and then takes off with the loot. And I'm going to kind of stop it there with the with the spoilers. I don't want to say too much more because it's really interesting how the film ultimately resolves, but I'll leave it at the point where Humphrey has kind of taken all the goods and he's split and he's left this friend for dead. One more thought about the old prospector character. I don't think I mentioned this before. I thought this was really cool. This was Walter Huston, and he was the dad of the director, John Huston. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, it got me thinking. It's like, would I ever want to be a director and have like my dad in the movie? It's like, that'd be kind of weird. I mean, how do you're directing a scene, you're like, hey Dad, go stand over there. Hey Pop, you're up. So I don't know. That was an interesting observation. But he does great, and I'll say it again. I think, in a way, he's almost something of the primary character. Bogart is there. He's sort of the main driving character. But as he starts getting more and more loopy from his head injury or whatever it was, you know, it's almost like Walter Huston becomes kind of the main character you believe in. He's just this very jovial, happy-go-lucky guy, and he understands the danger of, you know, gold and watching out for Gila monsters and crazy stuff like that. So that's really my thoughts on the film. It's really good. Like The African Queen, it's very gritty, very gross feeling. It makes you thirsty. It makes you want to bathe, too. It's like a very... They're out in the sun, they're digging, they're always in the dirt, they're shooting one another and punching each other and fighting with banditos and so on. So, yeah, there's that. It's an uncomfortable, like African Queen, but it's a good uncomfortable, and it's very well done. Really enjoyed this film a lot. Oh yeah, Max Steiner did the music. I wanted to make a note about that because that was some good stuff. You know, Max Steiner music is always great in these old films, and it's exceptional here. So that is a treasure of the Sierra Madre, and I'm going to have my friend Kermit pop in here and give some closing thoughts. What do you think, Kermit, of the movie?
Well, if you're looking for a treasure in a cave, be careful that it doesn't fall on your head. Ah!
Thank you.